Specifically in this video, I'm working through 251s, and I feel like mastering 251s on the guitar is one of the best ways to go about learning your fretboard and getting a good hang of playing and playing chords, because there's no one way to play a 251, especially as a keyboardist. So let's port over all that knowledge to guitar and create some progressions that can actually work in a given setting. So based on this 251 method that I'm trying to employ to learn and build my chord vocabulary while learning music on the guitar, I've developed somewhat of a little booklet with a bunch of chord progressions, all 251s, but different ways and different chords and progressions that can function as a 251. And I'm gonna go through all 12 of them, the first 12 in this video. So let's really just dive right in and see how it goes. The very first one would be your regular 251, and I'm gonna be playing in the key of D. So if you're familiar with your D major scale, it goes something like this. So my first 251 would be a regular E minor to my A major to my D major. So I'm trying to not just play the chords, but play them in such a way where I can actually use them in a particular setting. So I like comping something like this. And the chord that I added earlier was the 6. This is a minor 7, in this case a B minor 7. So it's really just here 2, 5, 1. So that's our first progression. The second one is really the same, 251, but we're taking the notes, we're embellishing them a bit, adding some extensions. So we're moving from a regular E minor to an E minor 7 to an A dominant 7 and now to a D major 7. And this is a diminished. I could just really just play it like this. And for this version of my A7, you notice I added this note here, which is really just another way of playing your A7, because this 7 is really just an octave of this one here. So that would be our second 251 progression. And again, if you want access to these chord charts, they are going to be in the description. I'm dropping them on the Patreon, so feel free to, join me over there as I learn guitar. Alright, so our next 251 progression would be, and this is in my case, something that I like doing on the keyboard, a E minor 7 flat 5 to an E flat minor 7 flat 5, and then to my D major 7. And for guitar it works easily because of the chromatic movements and the fact that you just keep the same pattern but just slide your fingers across the frets. And there are a bunch of variations of this very one, but we'll get to that in a bit. So here I just did a diminished chord, and then diminished chords actually repeat or inverted after the minor third. So once you get up to a minor third, which is what I did. I just went up a minor third and played the same diminish. So it's exactly identical to this one. It would just be the first inversion of it. So going back to that progression again, it'd be 2 minor 7 flat 5, walk down, down, and you'll notice that the movement from the E flat minor 7 flat 5 to my D minor 7 flat 5 is really just my index finger that's sliding from the 6th fret to the 5th fret, and that's one of the reasons why I like this progression or this version so much. Right, so moving to our next progression, I have a E minor 11 to my A dominant 7 to my D major 7 sus2. And I think the way I'm voicing my E minor 11 is I'm avoiding my first string. And this is something that I personally do often. I don't tend to play the first string. My fingers normally rest on it, kind of like this, when I'm playing chords. There are times when I'm strumming and I definitely play that first string, but in cases like this, A dominant 7, and then that one. So moving on to the next progression, I'm gonna play, what do I have here? Okay, so my next one is an E minor 9 to my A13, and then a D major 13. So an E minor 9, A13, I'm not really familiar with the stretch and transition of these chords yet, so I can't really, but it's a really nice sound. Some of these chords are really, really nice sounding. Let me try a... What was the first chord? E minor 9. So E minor 9 here to A13. I'm definitely getting used to this movement, but it will take some practice, for sure, for sure. Moving on to my next progression that I have here on my list, I have a chromatic walk down from my E minor 9, well, my E9 in this case. And this one is slightly different from the previous ones, because this one almost seems as if it's going somewhere else, like to the 4. But yeah. reason why my E flat minor 9 works as a substitute for my 5 chord is because music theory pretty much states that you can substitute your dominant 7 chord for a dominant 7 chord that's a tritone away from it. And in this case, your tritone is right here, which is our E flat. Most times I'm playing that E flat minor 7 or some version of that minor 7 chord. However, you could play the dominant 7 as well. So pretty much any progression could be a 2 minor 7 to that dominant 7 to that major 7, major 9, the add 9 right there. But we'll get to that. What's next? Yeah, I have an E7 sus. I quite like this sound. I really like this sound. Alright, my next progression that I'm looking at, I'm trying to remember as much of these as possible, and you can choose to remember the ones that you want. I don't think you need to remember all 12. If you're getting value from this video, by the way, please drop a like and comment below any ideas that you have for maybe some chord variations or something else that we could actually add to ensure that we are indeed learning. My next progression here is back to my E minor 7 flat 5. Then I'm going to an E diminished, and then my D major 7. And this is a really nice sound as well. We could go 2 diminished chords where I could go E diminished 7. Oh. So I could go to E diminished 7 here, then drop it a half step down, and then the D major 7. So that would be. That's a lot of diminished chords. So that's. Alright, the next progression here is the same 2 minor 7 flat 5, but this time we're going to a diminished here, and then, so the first one was this, then E diminished. No, the second one is this one. We go to the 2 minor 7 flat 5, but instead of E diminished, we're doing an E flat diminished to the 1, or we could go change our 1 chord in this case and go to the major 7 sus 2. So that's. Alright. Next progression, oh, this one seems like a bit of a stretch. So I'm gonna do an E minor 9 to an E minor 6 to a D6 add 9. Let's run that again. An E minor 9 to the D6, the E minor 6. So I think it's easier to play that A7 chord and just add that additional note here, which would be the, from this perspective, it's an A7 with an add 9, but we're not playing the A any at all, so we'll start from the 5th string. So instead of borrowing from the 5th fret, it's probably easier. Just ignore this string. So that's so this one's definitely gonna take some practice as well. E minor 9. So that 2/5 movement. That's the part that's challenging. Alright, so on to the next the next progression, and I think we're coming down to the end. Alright, let's do a E7 sus. I think we did this one already. E7 sus to the E minor 11 flat 5. My flat 5 is right here. And then finally, we could throw in a major chord for our 2, where we go Alright, so there goes 12 different ways to play 2-5-1 on guitar. I guess if you're still here, one thing you could probably do is, in practicing these progressions, put on a drum track to ensure that you're keeping your timing, and then cycle between different progressions. So don't play the same one twice. So you could go Alright, again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.